Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Tonight I speak of a wound that has run through human history and still bleeds in our time: injustice. Not merely a legal failing or a social glitch, but a spiritual and moral rot that displaces truth from its place and strips dignity from the human heart. What is injustice? At its root, linguistically and conceptually, it is placing something where it does not belong, giving less than what is due, or more than what is rightfully yours, transposing rights and duties from their rightful holders. In plain terms, injustice is the movement from truth to falsehood, the seizure of another's due, the distortion of balance, the abuse of power or trust. It can be an act of commission or omission, an excess, a deprivation, a misplaced judgment, a stolen right. That is why the classical definitions so potently describe it: to place a thing outside its appointed place, whether by subtraction, addition, or misplacement. We must distinguish injustice from its close relatives. Tyranny or crookedness signals a departure from uprightness in rule or conduct. Injustice, by contrast, is the harm that befalls the one who is not given his due. Gasham conveys oppressive breadth, a ruler's systemic cruelty that swallows communities. Ham describes the diminishment of rights, a more specific wounding. Precision in language matters because precision in description leads to precision in remedy. To call something by its right name is the first act of healing. The moral gravity of injustice is emphasized throughout the revelation and the prophetic teaching. God declares himself free from injustice. He is the ultimate arbiter who neither belittles a good deed nor allows the scales to tilt without account. Time and again the sacred text warns that wrongdoers will answer for the rights they trampled, that tyrannical communities are seized with a grievous end, and that those who consume the property of orphans, transgress limits, or oppress the weak will face consequences befitting their deeds. The prophetic tradition is equally emphatic: injustice is forbidden so explicitly that God says he has made it unlawful even for himself, a transcendent way of underlining its abhorrence. The messenger's warnings paint a chilling picture: whoever unjustly seizes a span of ground will be shackled by 7 earths, and the darkness of transgression will be vast on the day of reckoning. The words of the pious scholars echo and refine these truths: the oppressor may be granted respite, but that delay is not deliverance, it is a greater doom when the measure of accumulated wrongs is finally taken. Why does oppression evoke such stern rebuke? Because injustice does not merely hurt property or reputation, it sunders souls. It silences widows' tears, it scorches the orphan's chest, it steals bread from trembling hands. The moral ledger records every anguish, every tear. The victim's cry is a burden that reverberates in the order of justice. The jurists and moralists warn: never underestimate the supplication of the oppressed, it is a force that tops the scales of the heavens. The spiritual economy is precise: transient enjoyment achieved by trampling others may appear sweet, but its harvest is bitter, often reaped in calamity that dwarfs the fleeting thrill of gain. Injustice appears in many guises. It is individual and structural, it is private fraud and public tyranny. It is the neighbor who withholds a rightful loan, the official who skews judgment, the employer who steals wages, the state that crushes dissent, the community that turns a blind eye. Some injustices are blatant and visible, others are subtle: cultural habits, institutionalized neglect, the slow erosion of rights until whole classes of people live as if invisible. We must name these forms honestly so our remedies are directed and effective. The ethical response to injustice is manifold and urgent. First, the duty to assist the oppressed. Justice is not passive, it requires action, legal redress, social solidarity, material support, testimony in favor of truth. The believer is taught: if you are able to relieve a fellow human being's hardship, you are in turn relieved before the divine court. To conceal and to shelter the wronged is an act of mercy that will be accounted as a favor on the day of reckoning. Second, the obligation to restore rights. Restitution is not optional piety, it is the core of moral governance. Wrongdoers must return what they took, repair what they broke, and open their hands to reconciliation where possible. Third, the warning against aiding oppression. Helping the oppressor, even passively, is itself a form of transgression. Silence in the face of clear wrong is complicity by omission. But does the oppressor have a path back? Yes, repentance is part of the moral architecture. A wrongdoer who recognizes the depth of his misdeed, returns what he has seized, seeks forgiveness from those he harmed, and reforms his conduct may find redemption. Yet the text's caution, procrastinated repentance, or repentance without restitution, is fragile. God's forbearance is not impunity. The same mercy that calls sinners back to right conduct also warns of a decisive reckoning should oppression persist. History and tradition provide witnesses, stories of communities and rulers who rose by injustice and fell by the weight of their crimes, tales of the quiet dignity of the oppressed whose patient supplications unsettled tyrants, poetical laments that capture the ache of dispossessed hearts. These narratives are not mere ornament. They are moral mirrors, urging us to see where we stand and what legacy we will leave. And what of the interior life? Injustice corrodes the oppressor's soul as surely as it wounds the victim. The tyrant's ease is haunted by nights of unease, the ill-gotten loaf feeds a conscience that atrophies. The moral imagination, cultivated by the tradition, invites us to imagine the other's loss as our own loss. That is the first step to prevention, empathy converted into institutions and habits that protect dignity. Finally, what then? We are called to act. Individually, we must examine our dealings. Are we fair in commerce, truthful in testimony, generous in charity, humble in power? Institutionally, we must build systems that secure rights, transparent judiciary, accountable governance, protections for the vulnerable, and cultures that honor the marginalized. Spiritually, we must nurture a community that refuses to let evil become ordinary. Let us raise our voices against the everyday injustices that cheapen human life, and let our hands be busy with restitution and repair. Injustice is not inevitable. The moral order to which we are bound insists, insistently and compassionately, that every person's due be honored. To stand for justice is not to pursue abstract perfection but to enact concrete mercy, to return stolen rights, to defend the wronged, to refuse comfort that rests on another's pain. In doing so we restore the rightful place of things and people, we set the world aright. May our choices be for justice. May our actions heal wounds. And may the voice of every oppressed person find answer in the courageous solidarity of those who refuse to look away.